The chairs.
Voilà, là, on va avoir moins une demi-heure de retard. On va être obligé d'attendre un peu, quand même, peut-être plus de gens. On peut attendre. De toute façon, je pense qu'on va commencer à 1h30. Ouais, je crois qu'on va commencer à une demi-heure. Ouais. How are you? Good? The bomb. Yeah, well, Elias, but we actually all live in Spain. Flora lives in Spain. Oh, really? No way. In Catalonia. Oh, wow. Okay, good. Viven en Cataluña. Ah, sí. Ah, bien. Hablas español. Sí. Poco a poco. Bien tú. Que de Cataluña. O sea, viven ahí. Ah, viven ahí. Pero ¿dónde vienen eso? Where are you from? Originally, or you from UK? Sorry? Yes. Good point. Yeah. Thank you. Ils vont pas dire d'où ils viennent. Hein? Reino Unido y la otra no sé, pero lo dejamos, hablamos luego cuando, bueno, que por todo eso es Ah, il y a Marc là-haut. Marc. Au-dessus de Federico, il y a Marc. Je connais pas. Marc, c'est un vieux qui a Désolé, tu peux parler
Hein? Ouais, c'est bah ouais,
Bah ouais, ça y est.
en direct.
Ouais, ouais, là, c'est
Il y en a qui vont suivre.
déjà. Hein?
Il y en
Désolé,
a
tu
qui
peux
vont suivre.
Bah
Hein?
écoute,
Ouais,
en tout cas, là,
bah
je vais
ouais,
partager avec ça
en
sur
direct.
Telegram. Bien,
Il y en a qui vont suivre.
hein?
Il y en a qui vont
Bah
suivre. Hein?
écoute, en tout cas, là,
Bah
je vais
ouais,
partager avec ça
en
sur
direct.
Telegram.
Il y en a qui vont suivre.
Hein?
Il y en a qui vont suivre.
Bah
Hein?
écoute, en tout cas, là,
Bah
je vais
ouais,
partager avec ça sur
en direct.
Telegram.
J'ai mis quelques bouquins là en français.
Hein?
Parce que moi j'ai mis 3 bouquins en français et en espagnol.
Tu vois, c'est quoi?
Que j'ai ramené 3 bouquins.
Ah, super. Ouais, bah ouais.
Non, j'ai oublié, en fait, il n'y en a que 2 en français. Moi.
T'as vu, il y avait une personne
Parce qu'il y en a qui sont intéressés.
je pensais, hier,
Ah ouais, ouais.
elle est cool, on a parlé un peu, elle enseigne le grec dans les camps de réfugiés à Grèce. Elle bosse,
Ouais, c'est
ah, ouais, bah,
tu repars quand?
le lundi matin.
Lundi. Ah ouais, vous, part tout de suite. On va prendre 3 jours.
Ouais, bah, t'as bien raison.
Parce que tu es là. Hein, ça fait un mois que j'arrête plus d'armes.
Ah ouais, 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 vraiment, partout, ouais. Ouais. Non, donc, James Panner, c'est incroyable. Je sais pas si tu connais Selene.
Ici,
Athènes,
bon, jamais.
ah, bah, c'est incroyable. Non, mais vous avez bien raison, c'est incroyable.
Tu me donneras des conseils pour voir des trucs intéressants. Hein?
Ouais, bah, ouais, tu peux demander bah, surtout aux Grecs ici, quoi. Ouais, ouais, je pense qu'ils auront des meilleurs conseils.
Ouais, j'ai pas envie de rentrer trop dans les circuits touristiques non plus, mais bon, peut-être des choses indispensables
Ouais,
à
les
voir.
circuits touristiques, malheureusement, sur tout ce qui est la classe mythique, les films
Voilà,
d'art, la police et tout.
ah, c'est sûr.
T'es un peu obligé, enfin, pas obligé de le faire. C'est sûr que c'est touristique.
Panthéon et tout ça, quoi.
Ouais, ouais, ouais,
Ouais, c'est indispensable, quoi. Toi, tu as toujours.
ouais, ouais, ouais. Moi, je suis aussi trop fan.
Là, moi, j'ai bien l'intention de revenir l'année prochaine.
Ouais.
Ouais,
Ah ouais,
ça me plaît. Mais il faudrait que j'améliore mon anglais, quoi. Il faudrait que j'arrive à prendre des cours intensifs parce que je vois qu'il y a que ça, quoi, qui m'a.
ouais.
Ah, regarde,
Tu
le
fais
temps,
ça tous les ans.
temps qu'on fait.
T'auras au moins 2 ans.
Oui. Ouais, ça va.
C'est mieux, non?
Non, mais regarde, le
Ça te
temps
laisse
qu'on
du temps, ça te laisse du
Moi, là, j'ai une heure au maximum, avec 20 minutes pour parler, alors que si tu parlais anglais, je
Ah oui.
pourrais parler 1 heure en temps.
Ah oui, c'est sûr. C'est sûr.
Donc, on est un peu à prendre sur un axe, ouais, on a de l'intériorité par rapport à.
Bah là, tu vois, il y a des gars de justement, voilà, Alex, là, et sur, il y a tout, et c'est vraiment les internationalistes qui parlent plein de langues.
Ouais, c'est vrai.
Ça, c'est beau, parce que finalement, ah, évidemment, pour que l'intellectualisme marche, faut que les gens puissent se mettre un peu. Au final, c'est une tâche.
Après, il n'y a rien à faire, quoi. Rien à faire.
Ouais, ça, ouais, ça, c'est sûr.
Moi, il y avait tout ce projet pour essayer de langue internationale.
Ouais, ouais,
On
ouais.
a perdu la bataille, là aussi, tu vois.
Ouais, ça, c'est, oui, ça, c'est sûr.
Sur les débuts à étudier les langues de
Même si bon, parce que tiens, déjà, avec le français, espagnol, bien, oui, il y a un peu de
c'est
espace,
pas mal.
mais l'anglais, c'est
Genre,
anglais, les gens, ils parlent pas
avec
bien.
un contact dynamique, surtout avec
Ouais,
moi, je trouve avec le prof d'économie, c'est super. C'est un ami à lui qui l'a éduqué en fait. Du coup, il a une toi. Maintenant, on fait des vidéos références sur le
ouais, ah oui, c'est vrai. Mais tu entends qu'un Argentine, on a rappelé que c'est qui, toujours dans la médiation. Après, bon, l'université de la Terre, là. Ah non, c'est un homme, là, c'est pas une option. Ça regarde, de l'université, ça regarde. Oui, oui, oui. Et ça, ça me parle de ouais. Pas fait du fruit. C'est tout ce que le fruit, la respect, la démocratie.
You don't get my peers on anything. Because it doesn't. You can I'm still. I think it's like them around 600. What's the picture? You be a god, you fit function. That. It's a good thing. It's like everybody's getting more people. This is the but But then I think it wasn't. Yes, no, I'm just, there's that, I don't know, but it's, the actions. So, let's go. Yes, it's humorous. So, yeah, again, we can say that now it's third standard. My way. So, it's something to be, okay. So, yeah, for sure. Checking on, let's go.
Sorry, actually, we just have one Ethernet cable for the top. Yeah.
Yavor that for someone he wasn't feeling right. Which is I think like for now beyond the time we can't be we can help you another ever it is it doesn't yeah.
Well, waiting for more people. Now we have way more people. Because, everyone came to bed late. So we wanted to give them time. We, yes, 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 yes. Sounds good. So, yes, please. Okay. So, we're going to start. Welcome everyone to the second day of the TRISE conference. So today we have an exciting program, so like all the other days, no? Just a few announcements before we start. So first thing is to say that for those of you that were here yesterday, we had some activity at the end of the first keynote speech by Quayle, asking us to provide some ideas of what we could need or expect from others in this conference. So the result is here on the wall. So these are some of the ideas that emerged yesterday, and yeah, feel free to read them, have a look, implement them, everything you want. No? So that's one thing. And yes, the second thing is that so today we have better connection. So the conference will be streamed on Facebook, on YouTube. So I sent on the Telegram group the link. So if you think some people could be interested, but that could not come, well, feel free to share the link, and then they will be able to look at the event live. No. So yeah, with that, we will move to the first keynote speaker, Floréal. So for brief presentation, so Floréal has been active in the field of social ecology for a very long time, mostly in Spain and in France. So after well, some experiments in eco villages, he had like this let's say need to open up new ideas, and came to social ecology a long time ago through that, and then wrote different books with also comrades from France, and since then the publication of the first book in 2019. He has been working a lot on organizing, let's say, the social ecology community and municipalist community, both in France and in Spain. So we are lucky to have him here today, even though he doesn't speak English. So we will be doing the translation, no? So from French to English, and yeah, translation as well for questions, obviously. So feel free to raise anything you would like to afterwards. No? So with that, yeah.
Thank you. I speak English. Thank you.
Good. Well, okay, I'm off. That's it. I take a point.
Bon, alors je vais commencer par un constat. En fait, le capitalisme nous a déclaré la guerre, hein, il y a longtemps, depuis sa création même. On va dire, avec les enclosures, la chasse aux sorcières, la destruction des communautés paysannes, il nous a la colonisation, l'exploitation, l'extractivisme, la destruction de nos milieux naturels. Ça, c'est la déclaration de la guerre par le capitalisme. Le capitalisme qui est une entité, qui est justement abstraite, mais qui a des effets concrets évidents. Et ce sont les sous-officiers du capitalisme qui vont défendre et qui vont le conduire dans les impasses vers lesquelles il se dirige, et lutter contre les oppositions qui se présentent à lui. Tous les obstacles qui se présentent à lui, les sous-officiers du capitalisme vont faire en sorte de les détruire. Voilà.
Okay, so the place to start is to realize that, well, capitalism has declared war upon people and upon nature, and that has been the case for a few centuries now, with colonization, the destruction of peasant societies, the exploitation of labor, destruction of nature. So that's the basic dialectic we need to start working on, and then from that realize how the different officers, let's say, or the agents of capitalism are working on different spheres of life to continue that, to pursue that war. So we need to be conscious of that starting point.
Voilà, étant donné que nous sommes dans un moment historique vraiment crucial, il est important pour nous de développer des stratégies. Alors, je vais citer une phrase de Sun Tzu: connais l'adversaire, mais surtout connais-toi toi-même et tu seras invincible.
Yeah. So from that starting point, we need to develop the strategies accordingly, no? And therefore, from the one of the quotes from Sun Tzu, The Art of War, no? There is really this necessity to know the enemy, and to act with that knowledge, no?
Connaître l'ennemi, l'écologie sociale a fait un grand pas pour connaître l'ennemi. Je ne vais pas dire que tout est dit, hein. On n'honore pas un penseur en louant ou même en interprétant son travail, mais en le discutant, le maintenant par là en vie, et démontrant dans les actes qu'il défie le temps et garde sa pertinence. C'est Castoriadis qui parle.
Okay, so to know the enemy and to know how to act upon it. Some thinkers of social ecology have done a lot of advances, and we need to know them well. But to honor these thinkers and to move on after their different works, to honor them properly, we really need to discuss them and try to always go beyond and to demonstrate in action the pertinence and the relevance of their thinking. No? That's a sentence from Castoriadis, really summarized.
Alors, l'écologie sociale résume très bien la connaissance de l'ennemi par cette phrase lapidaire qui a beaucoup plus de conséquences qu'on ne le pense, c'est-à-dire les catastrophes écologiques plongent leurs racines dans les injustices sociales elles-mêmes se nourrissant des dominations. C'est un maintien de ces dominations qui oblige à l'exploitation, à l'extractivisme, par exemple, donc destruction des sociétés humaines et destruction du milieu dans lequel elles se développent.
So we have this very central thesis within social ecology, no, that summarizes a bit the enemy that we have in front of us, so that the different ecological destructions really have their source in social inequalities, and these inequalities have their source in all the different forms of domination that we have, let's say, accumulated through history. No, so it is really through these different forms of domination that extractivism, exploitation, inequality can be really understood and explained.
Donc on peut dire que le capitalisme, c'est vraiment le summum des destructions. Il concentre tous les maux. Il s'agit vraiment d'un cancer social par le fait d'être obligé de croître ou mourir.
So really, the capitalist system we live in now really concentrates all those domination forms of the past centuries, and therefore, in that sense, really are the summum of the destruction. And it can be considered like a social cancer and something that's like a disease of society.
La difficulté de saisir tout ça, c'est qu'en fait, on en fait partie. On fait partie, un temps, on a été converti, donc, étant donné qu'on a été dépossédé de nos moyens de production, donc on s'est converti en fait en marchandises. Nous sommes des marchandises placées sur le marché du travail pour vendre notre force de travail. Qu'importe ce que l'on fait, nous ne sommes plus des sujets, nous sommes devenus des objets.
So through this domination of capitalism, we have stopped to be real political subjects. We have had we lost the control on the means of production. We have been objectified with labor markets. We have become just mere consumers. So there is this objectification of human life, no, through that system.
Alors il convient de connaître plus précisément encore le plus possible ce corps social malade. Quand un corps est malade, que ce soit au niveau individuel ou au niveau social, il nous faut demander comment est sa venue.
So if we start from that hypothesis, know that we are a social body that is sick really with that disease, we need to understand the origin and the causes of the disease to be able to act.
Donc, Muriel Bookchin, justement, il dénonce le dépassement de sa première contradiction, capitalisme, donc la lutte des classes par la société de consommation et grâce aussi, il faut le dire, au Fordisme et à la social-démocratie. Warren Buffett l'a déclaré, oui, nous vivons dans une guerre de classe, mais nous l'avons gagnée.
So capitalism has been able to go beyond this the first contradiction, the labor and capital contradiction of the class struggle, no, through various means. So social democracy, the consumer society, Fordism, and in the words of Warren Buffett, there was a class struggle, but the capitalist class won in it.
Alors, il faut tenir compte aussi dans ces stratégies, ces offensives idéologiques et économiques. Le plan Marshall, par exemple, est un illustratif, non? À la fin de la guerre, 45, la, la Russie et le Parti communiste dans les sociétés occidentales menaçaient le capitalisme. Le capitalisme étant un capitalisme d'État, évidemment, l'Union soviétique, mais il y avait une concurrence énorme et on a développé donc une offensive et économique avec le plan Marshall en aidant les pays occidentaux à se relever des désastres de la guerre, mais elle allait accompagner avec une offensive idéologique qui était le développement. Développement, tout le monde adhère au développement, bien sûr. Les pays pauvres, ils sont pauvres, il faut les aider à se développer. Donc, dans cette ambiance catholique de tous les pays occidentaux, ça a pris un essor formidable et on a cru à ce développement. Mais ce qui passe, c'est que dans les années 60, 70, le mouvement écologique est devenu très fort. Donc, on a eu droit à une autre offensive.
Okay, so yes, so to understand the development of capitalism, at least in 20th century, we need to understand the attacks on two fronts, economic and ideological. So if we go back to the Marshall Plan, no, in terms of the economic offensive, no, so we had the capitalism had the necessity to counter the emerging USSR, and there was obviously this geopolitical struggle, but through the Marshall Plan, really there was this economic offensive uh, to reach a new development, no, and that's when the ideological part comes in with this idea of development. So where all of a sudden everyone, all the countries were adhering to this ideology, whether it be rich countries or poor countries, no. So there was really this emphasis on growth, no, economic growth, infinite economic growth, linked to development and linked to human progress.
Après, il y a eu le Club de Rome et la proposition de croissance zéro. Une proposition impossible, évidemment, mais cela a permis de détruire le mouvement écologiste de l'époque, qui était un mouvement très radical dans les années 70 et à laquelle Bookchin avait beaucoup contribué aussi.
So, but if we go back to the 60s and we start to see the emergence of the first ecological movements, we can see that they were very radical, no? And that with the new emerging ideas of the Club of Rome, no, that were advocating for zero growth, for example, within a capitalist society, which is obviously an impossible goal. But the effect was to, let's say, disarm the strength of that emerging and more radical ecological movement of back then.
Dernièrement, la dernière offensive, on peut dire, en 87, qui a été ratifiée en 92 par les mouvements altermondialistes, la Réunion de Rio, ce sont les objectifs de développement durable.
So the next, more recent ideological offensive was in 1992, no, with the different conventions of Rio and the birth of this proposal, no, of the Sustainable Development Goals, no.
C'est ce qui a permis le développement du capitalisme vert, donc un développement économique encore multiplié, développement exacerbé, on va dire, de tout l'extractivisme et les pollutions possibles et imaginables.
So these new ideological frameworks have really justified and allowed the development of the green version of capitalism, no? So in that sense, we can see the roots back in the 90s of this new form, well, green form, no? So that really boosted even more the competitivity and growth, no?
On se retrouve donc actuellement avec une jeunesse vraiment atteinte d'anxiété écologique, éco-anxiété, et détournée complètement des affaires du monde par le développement des technologies obligées. Ce développement est obligé dans le capitalisme, puisqu'il faut développer une technologie capable de être compétitif sur le marché, donc de baisser les coûts de production au maximum.
So we have now, if you look at the youth, obviously we have this widespread eco-anxiety, no, and also in parallel this kind of obligation to use different technologies, the same technologies that are the ones that allow, well, capitalism to increase its different markets, its different logics, but with the same, no, in the end, imperative of growth, no.
Donc, la société du spectacle qui avait commencé avec la télévision, maintenant s'accentue avec l'usage des smartphones, par exemple, et du numérique, qui donne l'illusion que là, on est en train de faire quelque chose, alors que on participe complètement à la société du spectacle.
So what was emerging as the critique now of the spectacle society, well, already with television, we see that that critique has only become more relevant with the new technologies and the smartphones now that give a bit the illusion that some streams of society are doing some actions, whereas really we are only participating more in this spectacle society.
Je ne dis pas que c'est voulu, je ne dis pas que c'était voulu, mais n'empêche que ça sert le capitalisme, mais c'est une obligation, c'est dans sa logique de time is money. Donc ça fait longtemps que ça existe et depuis toute la spéculation en bourse, tout oblige à faire très vite. et aussi les guerres. Les guerres sont aussi des motivations supplémentaires pour développer les technologies au maximum.
Okay, so it's not about having to be like voluntarily participating in that system, but in the end, that's what we are actually doing, and actually generating a lot of value for the capitalists through these new technologies. And we see a bit of a parallel actually with the economy of war, where the functions of war is the same, is to create this new reason, you know, to develop technologically and develop economically.
Et ce qui permet justement la croissance sans limite. Il y a deux éléments qu'il ne faut pas oublier, deux composantes essentielles du capitalisme. La valorisation de la valeur, qu'on peut dire c'est la méga machine invisible, c'est le moteur de la méga machine invisible.
Okay, so now we have these two components now within capitalism that we need to understand. One of them is the valorization of value, no? The constant growth of value that we take as the main engine, no, of the capitalist system.
Il y a le marché mondialisé, évidemment, donc qui permet, qui oblige à cette compétitivité de croître, de mourir. Et puis l'État. L'État, c'est un élément essentiel aussi, c'est une catégorie du capitalisme essentiel, régulateur des antagonismes et formatage des esprits, et régulation aussi des marchés et colonisation du monde par les marchés dans tous les coins du monde possible et imaginable.
So from that core engine, we have the two no main building blocks, no, the system, the globalized market, no, that is pushing for competitivity in all areas, that is having this imperative of grow or die, and in parallel, the state, no, which is really a component of capitalism, a completely necessary component that, well, whose role is to regulate the antagonisms, no, within society, and also to format the minds of the citizens, the consumers, to so that they participate, no, in this pursuing conquest, no, market conquest of minds and nature and societies, no.
L'État aussi, le monopole de la violence, le monopole de la politique sur son vecteur et de la démocratie représentative. Et c'est pour ça que lorsque, par exemple, on s'attaque à des conséquences, on va dire, comment on appelle ça? Oui, des conséquences que sont, par exemple, le fascisme, ce n'est qu'un visage du capitalisme. Donc, attaquer le fascisme sans attaquer le capitalisme, c'est aussi une bataille complètement secondaire et pas importante.
So now we see also the state with this very important function of the monopoly of violence and the monopoly of politics in its current form, no, the representative democracy. And so from that understanding, we can see fascism as only another form of capitalism itself. And therefore, we can see that any struggle against fascism that does not consider the roots, the capitalist root of that system is doomed to fail because it's not really tackling the key issue of capitalism.
Non pas que ce soit pas important, mais il faut aller à la racine du mal.
It's necessary to go to the roots. Obviously, any anti-fascist struggle is very important, but really going at the root is key as well.
Là, j'en viens à la deuxième partie de la phrase de Sun Tzu, qui est se connaître. Connaître en tant qu'opposition au capitalisme. Nos esprits sont colonisés par le capitalisme.
So,
C'est ça la grosse difficulté que l'on a.
so now after the first block now of we need to understand the enemy, we need to understand ourselves, and the starting point here is that to have an efficient opposition to capitalism, we need to understand first of all that our minds are colonized by capitalism, and this is really a main difficulty, no, to start from.
Dans le fait social aussi, nous sommes atomisés. La destruction des liens sociaux est évidente. De plus en plus, on n'a pas de choses à faire en commun. On est des marchandises qui se présentent seules sur le marché.
So we are like completely atomized at the social level. No, we stopped being citizens and we became mere commodities. No, we are entering markets as individuals, as consumers, and yeah, we now live in this market atomizing society.
La séparation des activités entre elles, la société du spectacle et du numérique, dont j'ai parlé, entraîne un manque d'imagination. Nous sommes dans des luttes éparpillées et sans lendemain. L'éco-angoisse dont j'ai parlé, l'urgence, Ça provoque une urgence, donc voilà, on ne réfléchit pas à nos actions, on agit en réaction aux offensives du capitalisme.
So some other things we talked about: the separation of social activities, the spectacle society, the influence of technology in our lives really lead to a global lack of imagination, of capacity to imagine. And the result of that is that all our struggles are reactive. No, they're relevant, but they're only reacting to threats, and therefore we always act with big anxiety, with rushing, with in emergency. No, and yeah, we are stuck into this reactive mode. Not to
Or les batailles sont désespérées, nous perdons les combats et la destruction se poursuit. Ça, il faut prendre acte de ça, il faut regarder les choses en face, faut avoir peur de ça. Au contraire, faire l'autruche, ça ne nous sert pas du tout. Et l'illusion, encore moins.
So we really need to acknowledge that, no, that our battles are sometimes very desperate, that we are losing many of the different struggles, and we really should not be afraid of accepting that and looking at the facts, no, as they are, no, in that sense.
Donc toucher fond, c'est constater notre impuissance politique. Donc il faut retenir, je retiens 5 dimensions essentielles d'autocritique par rapport à nous qui sommes dans l'opposition. Je dis nous parce qu'il y a des tas de gens qui se définissent anticapitalistes, mais on est toujours tous dans l'impuissance et nous, pareil. Mais nous, on a un avantage, c'est une vision claire des choses. Peut-être, sans doute, je pense. Alors,
So with that diagnostic, no, that we really need to acknowledge that we are powerless in many ways, no, to confront this capitalist system, no. But however, some strands, and with the social ecology in particular, can give us at least this clear vision about like this diagnostic, and from which we can then develop different dimensions, no, to reclaim the political sphere, no.
je vais prendre 5 exemples minimum de nos insuffisances, justement par rapport à ce que l'on fait, par rapport aux... Enfin, il y en a une, c'est les actions, le temps, la théorie critique et la psyché. Nos psychés, notre autocritique en tant que personnes et individus qui sommes dans des groupes. Je rejoins Clini dans sa présentation d'hier. Voilà. Donc, les actions.
So we have now we move on to four essential dimensions.
5.
Five. No, cinq. Yes, five. Okay. Five dimensions. One is action. The other one is the temporal dimension. The other one is the critical theory. And the last one is the fourth one is the psyche, the psychological dimension. And the fifth one was the
Pour l'instant, c'est bon.
ah, That's it.
Il y en a une autre. Les actions, donc je reprends les actions, les espaces de contestation est l'un des plus codifiés de la vie sociale.
So actually the space of struggles are some of the most codified actually spaces of social life.
Autant les grèves, les manifestations, les pétitions, les désobéissances civiles, les émeutes, ce sont des formes rituelles et reconnues par le pouvoir.
So we have a series of different types of actions, no, like strikes, manifestation, protests, petitions, civil disobedience. All of these have become almost ritual forms of social struggle, and they've become completely accepted and by powers, no, by the powers.
On peut donc en conclure que l'expression de la dissidence est vraiment inscrite dans le système.
So all of these expressions of dissent are really already inscribed into the system and absorbed. Yeah.
Donc il va falloir revoir nos activités et surprendre l'État.
So in terms of action, we really will need to review our priorities, review our modes of action, so that we can really surprise the state apparatus. No?
Et pour le temps, pour ce qui est du temps, j'ai parlé tout à l'heure de l'urgence qui se présente souvent comme la nécessité de faire quelque chose à tout prix, quoi qu'il en coûte. Ça, c'est une erreur pour nous.
So in terms of the time dimension this time, no? So we said before that we always were acting in reaction and with emergency, and this is really one of the key factor of our defeats, no? That if we lose, it's precisely because we have that way of acting, no? That is reacting and rushing. No?
Et si nous perdons des batailles, c'est parce que nous nous situons par rapport à l'État en fonction des actions de l'État. Et l'État fixe la temporalité politique et les sujets débattus. Nous réagissons dans l'urgence, voilà, par rapport à tout ça.
So, and one other way to see that is precisely that we match our actions to the different actions and functions of the state. And in that sense, we are not surprising, we are not acting efficiently. The state is really the one that fixes the temporality of the political realm, the debates that we have as societies. And in that sense, he dictates really the order even of the social struggles most of the time.
Notre théorie doit être de plus en plus critique. Critique par rapport au système et par rapport à nos systèmes que nous avons intégrés aussi. Donc, il nous faut une critique imaginative, très imaginative.
So moving on to the critical theory this time, we really need to, again, be critical obviously of the system, but also of ourselves, and really develop that critique to guide our actions in a more creative and imaginative way. No?
Lorsqu'on critique une situation nouvelle, on a tendance à demander celle qu'il y avait avant. Donc, à conserver l'ordre normal des choses. Dans ce cas-là, nous sommes des conservateurs.
So sometimes there is also this tendency, no, when we act against a current situation to basically defend some type of going back to the previous situation, no, idealizing the past, and really in the end that really makes us sometimes very conservative. No, we need to be aware of that as well.
Compte tenu de ces éléments, nous allons essayer de créer un mouvement. Parce que le mouvement, j'en ai parlé hier, le mouvement part d'une chose, l'essentiel, l'action. Pour avoir une action, il faut d'abord développer un imaginaire, il faut développer une connaissance de la situation actuelle dans laquelle on se trouve, en faisant appel au passé, parce que le passé nous éclaire. Il y a un proverbe africain qui dit, si tu ne sais pas où aller, regarde derrière toi.
Right. So, but obviously, even that being said, we really need to be also aware of our past because it illuminates the future now. And there's a proverb in Africa that says that if you do not know where to go, you just look behind you, no, and you will. So there is this importance as well to reflect on obviously our past and our history.
Pour moi, il y a un mouvement sur lequel, justement, on peut s'inspirer, non pas copier, les situations sont totalement distinctes, on n'est plus au XXe siècle, c'est le mouvement anarchiste espagnol, parce qu'il a réussi quelque chose que prône Murray Bookchin, c'est de créer une société parallèle à celle qui existe actuellement et être en tension avec elle.
So if we look at the past precisely for examples, we can spend quite some attention on the Spanish anarchists precisely because they had achieved that strategy of creating really a parallel society, a parallel way of doing things back then. No? So that really a great example for us. No?
Je ne vais pas m'étendre là-dessus, ça demande tout un travail que je poursuivrai dans l'écriture de l'article, mais en tout cas, il y avait une culture très forte dans les mouvements aussi bien contestataires que dans les mouvements alternatifs de société, comme les coopératives de consommateurs, coopératives de logement, sécurité sociale, autogérée. Il y avait les Athénées libertaires, les écoles rationalistes, et il y avait le syndicalisme comme forme de lutte.
So, well, right now we will not necessarily go through the history of the Spanish anarchism, but we have this structure that really is acting on all the fronts. So one of them is obviously the contestation, the struggle against fascism, the fascism of that time, but also the alternative society, precisely with a lot of organs, a lot of institutions. So obviously the syndicalism, but also Ateneos, so more like spaces of free thinking and critique and discussing and meeting, like tenants unions and different forms of unions that are really the cooperatives, obviously at the economic level, that are all acting now in this construction of the alternative system.
Ce qu'il y a aussi à remarquer, c'est la notion de mouvement. J'insiste beaucoup là-dessus, parce que le mouvement, ça implique d'abord qu'il y ait des luttes, dont j'allais parler tout à l'heure, qu'il y ait aussi la réflexion, c'est la théorie et la réflexion par un mouvement dialectique s'enrichissent, mais il nous faut avoir un horizon. L'horizon, c'est l'utopie. Quand on avance d'un pas, l'utopie recule d'un pas. On avance de 10 pas. L'utopie recule de 10 pas. À quoi sert l'utopie? Elle sert à avancer. C'est Eduardo Galeano qui nous le dit.
So we have this, we see this necessity now when going back to the present to be in movement, to be acting, to be reflecting as well on our actions. So there is this dialectic between, well, acting and reflecting and theorizing. No? But for that constant movement to go somewhere, well, we need an utopia, no? Like a vision in the future. And there is this proverb by Eduardo Galeano that says that precisely as you advance, well, utopia goes further down, and that's the role of utopia is to progress, no?
Le mouvement anarchiste espagnol avait un grand avantage, c'est qu'en fait, c'est le faire ensemble, la complicité qu'il y avait pour aller vers le communisme libertaire.
So the Spanish anarchism had this very strong particularity of social consciousness of doing things together, of acting together with the utopia of libertarian communism.
Il n'y avait pas de théoriciens remarqués et remarquables, mais n'empêche qu'il y avait un théoricien le plus grand du monde, c'est l'intelligence collective.
So that movement didn't have necessarily one key theorizer or thinker, no, but they had the best actually way to theorize and to think, which is collective intelligence.
Un problème soulevé par Crini hier, c'est le thème de la psyché, les égos. Je pense qu'il faut y revenir si on veut vraiment créer un mouvement qui ne soit pas détruit par les égos, qui sont quelque chose dont on ne s'aperçoit même pas. On pense qu'on fait bien, on pense qu'on est les meilleurs, mais on n'a pas conscience de cette nécessité d'intelligence collective, et c'est dans le faire ensemble. On m'a invité à un congrès de pédagogie sociale, et un petit garçon qui avait 15 ans, pour moi, il dit quelque chose d'admirable. Nous, on fait les choses ensemble, ce qui crée une empathie entre nous. On a une complicité. Et puis, on a la culture du dialogue. La culture du dialogue fait que si on ne s'entend pas aujourd'hui, demain on reprend. D'une autre façon. Mais on dilue les égos. C'est la façon de diluer les égos.
So moving on from critical thinking to the psyche, no, something that was touched upon yesterday a lot by Crini was precisely the thematic of egos, no, and how even in our spaces we do reproduce those power dynamics, those strong egos, and actually we end up dividing ourselves, no, and reproducing some of the things we criticize. And so he was assisting, Floréal was assisting to a congress where he was a kid of 15 years old that was saying how in their group what precisely makes collective action powerful is the ability to act together without this egoist dimension and precisely creating empathic links between the members of this group. And really, that's one example that we need to follow so that at the psychological level, we also implement some of the critique we have at the theoretical or social level.
Il nous faut là revenir et devancer, justement dans notre stratégie, il faut devancer la stratégie ennemie. Justement, c'est des éléments qu'apporte souvent le réformisme. Le réformisme offre sur le plateau des solutions pour désarticuler et désamorcer les actions que l'on mène et les tentatives de démonter le capitalisme.
So that's why we need to really go beyond already the strategy, the enemy strategy, not precisely that absorbs always some of the initiatives that can come from the social movements. And that's really the main threat of reformism, no, is that precisely it acts to disamorce some of the more critical ways of doing things. So now we will go through some examples of these.
Nous avons l'exemple.
That's it.
Nous avons l'exemple du municipalisme à Barcelone, par exemple. Comment un mouvement qui était parti vraiment du social, des mouvements sociaux engagés, se sont fait désactiver par l'accession aux instances de l'État, en fait. La municipalité, ce sont les extrémités de l'institution de l'État. Donc, penser qu'on va pouvoir renverser l'État en prenant ses propres éléments, c'est très discutable.
So one of the examples is when we talk about municipalism, no, is precisely to be critical of different experiences like the one of Barcelona, where we had precisely a very strong social movement that when accessing to the municipal power really was deactivated, no? So we have that trap of thinking that if we can just get the municipal power in the existing structure of the state, where really the municipality is the tip of the state, not the local level, well, we might be mistaken precisely because of this capacity of this trap, of disamorcing the base through that accession to power.
En fait, de quoi il s'agit? Il s'agit d'un management.
Power, and someone said, really good. Someone said, power.
Disempowered.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's good. Disempower the good. Thank you.
D'accord.
If you have more examples, you say because
The only Frenchism you ever said.
okay,
Merci.
So désactiver.
En fait, ces agissements comme ceux des citoyennismes, actuellement en France, il y a des listes citoyennes qui se présentent. C'est du management, c'est de gérer collectivement les municipalités, ce qui revient finalement à des propositions des leaders de la, comment on peut dire, de la gestion, comme la sociocratie par exemple. On a l'impression de travailler en autogestion, mais en fait, on oublie l'objectif, qui est se sortir du capitalisme. Et c'est aussi ce que proposait le national-socialisme, qui est un oxymore, mais on en retrouve plein d'oxymores dans le langage capitaliste. Développement durable, c'en est un des plus beaux, mais il y en a plein d'autres. L'économie circulaire, l'économie verte, renouvelable, enfin tout ça quoi.
So another example, this time quite relevant in France, is this notion of citoyennism, no? More like this emphasis on having citizen lists grabbing this municipal power, no? So we have this same trap, no, of ending up just claiming to be able to manage the municipalities. So we have this managerial approach that we can find in other thinking like sociocracy or even National Socialism, no? And so we really lose the objective, which is really ultimately to get out of capitalism and of the state, no? So we have this oxymoron repeated constantly, like sustainable development or circular economy, no? That are here to, again, disactivate this more radical objective.
Un exemple, c'est dans les nazis, par exemple, dans l'armée nazie, on te disait cet objectif est à prendre. Débrouillez-vous comme vous voulez. Donc, il y a autogestion des soldats quelque part, entre guillemets.
So even in the Nazi army, actually, they were fixing an objective and saying, okay, you guys need to accomplish this objective. And the way that was done was left to the soldiers, actually. So there was this form of self-management within that context.
Alors, il y a un risque pour le communalisme, justement, je m'avance sur les stratégies ennemies, c'est que le communalisme aussi peut être quelque chose de récupérable. Je vois ça dans l'État communal, par exemple, préconisé au Venezuela par Chavez et Maduro. On parle d'État communal. Donc, ils essayent de faire en sorte que les décisions soient prises en bas de l'appareil de l'État. Mais ça ne change rien. C'est même pire, c'est que ça disperse complètement l'activité vraiment autogérée et pour sortir du capitalisme.
So even with if we move to communalism, no, we also have certain traps that are emerging in different places. One of them is, for example, the notion in Venezuela of the communal state, where they have this intention not to kind of put the power of decision making at the bottom, no, of the state's scale, but obviously without challenging really the hierarchical structure. So it's actually a very big risk, precisely because again it scatters a bit the focus and efficiency of social actors. No?
En Chine, c'est ce qui s'est fait aussi après la révolution culturelle. C'est d'après Chang, un collectif très proche de nous finalement, dont on ignore, mais qui sont très proches du communalisme, même s'ils se revendiquent du communisme. Il parle de l'extension de l'État jusqu'au niveau local, c'est-à-dire un appareil paraformal de gouvernance qui s'établit en bas, au niveau des communes.
So another example comes from China, actually, with a movement called Cheng, no, that are talking about extending the state to the local level, and also with the same focus, no, on the communal level to take decision and do the politics, but again without challenging that same structure. In China, we have this.
Nature.
What is going on? Can someone? What?
Il s'exprimer, et puis il s'exprimer. Nous avons maintenant, c'est l'ennemi qui nous sauve. Donc, reprenons. Une fois avoir ces constatations établies sur les stratégies de l'ennemi, justement, c'est à nous d'établir une stratégie vraiment cohérente et qui sorte de toutes les impasses qui nous ont été tendues, tous les pièges qui nous ont été étendus auparavant dans l'histoire et ceux qui se préparent maintenant.
Okay, so that's from all of these analysis, now the different traps that we can fall into, that we can really develop the communalist strategy. No?
Et pour ça, aucune intelligence n'est en trop. C'est pour ça que je trouve intéressant ce que l'on est en train de faire en France. On a créé un atelier d'écologie sociale et de communalisme. Ce qui se passe ici au TRISE, je trouve que c'est aussi très important parce que c'est justement essayer de donner cette dimension d'intelligence collective dont on a tellement besoin.
So in that with that vision in mind, no, it's interesting to think of different examples. One of them is in France. They created an atelier, which is really kind of a group institute reflection collective, no, that is working on this collective intelligence around communalism. And he's also saying that with the example of TRISE, it's also one of the objective to bring very different people, very different perspective with the same vision to really build that collective intelligence.
En France, actuellement, il y a beaucoup de mouvements intéressants et on essaye de faire en sorte justement de les rencontrer en tant que communalistes, proposer nos visions politiques et nos stratégies pour faire en sorte de unir des forces qui ont une dimension politique, c'est-à-dire le politique considéré comme fédérateur au niveau local d'abord, puis au niveau international par le confédéralisme, pour déboucher justement sur la création de cette société parallèle en tension avec celle de l'État.
So again, one of these the work that they are doing in France is to precisely to meet all of the different struggles and movements we talked about are a bit scattered, but are very relevant in their own right now, and to really try to create a common political vision, no, with bringing on the table the communalist proposal, no? So the proposal of building from the federal level at the local level, direct democracy, and at the international level with the confederation, no. Approach. So articulating that to really go to this alternative parallel system that we talked about with the Spanish Annex.
Je pense qu'il faut reprendre une phrase de Walter Benjamin. L'espoir nous est donné par le désespoir des autres. C'est important.
So we need to get back to one sentence of Walter Benjamin that was saying that hope is given to us by the despair of others, no?
Et pour l'instant, il n'y a pas de proposition politique d'ampleur, ambitieux au niveau collectif. Il n'y en a pas. Il n'y a que le communalisme, je pense, qui est capable de proposer des choses concrètes qui sortent des moules déjà établis par la politique sur le vecteur de l'État, de la démocratie représentative.
So in that sense, really communalism is one of the only or more relevant framework proposal to have really to get out of the pre-established, let's say, proposals of that fall into the vectors of the state, no, to get to a political sphere that is not the politics of the state, no, but really another alternative that is coherent and builds a new system.
Rassembler les mouvements sociaux dans un lieu déterminé, c'est aussi se préoccuper des soucis, des problèmes que se présentent aux personnes concrètes dans le village, dans le quartier, dans la ville.
So when we try to do this work to gather social movements, it's obviously about caring for the real difficulties of the people living in all areas, in a determined area with social movements, whether it be at the village level, the neighborhood level, or at the city.
Proposer le communalisme, proposer le politique en dehors des institutions de l'État, c'est créer un pouvoir et donner de l'espoir justement à ces sensibilités différentes dans des mouvements sociaux au niveau local et au niveau même au-delà. Et petit à petit, il nous faut créer des lieux où cela commence et les fédérer tout de suite pour créer ce mouvement.
So from that approach, we get to empower different sections of the social movements, federate them, and at some point this will happen in very concrete places, no, on the territory. And so very quickly there will be the need to federate them together to start that network, no, the confederal network.
Federate the movement or to federate the projects of the movement.
So pour fédérer les mouvements en soi ou fédérer les différents projets des mouvements.
Fédérer les mouvements sociaux sur le lieu et puis les fédérer entre locaux, entre localités.
So there is this dimension of federating different social movements on one territory, one place, and then federating that in different places. No? So they have these two levels, on the place and then different
Il
places.
me semble justement que l'important, c'est de donner des réponses immédiates socialement. On ne peut pas proposer du politique en l'air. Les propositions politiques doivent déboucher sur des réalisations sociales concrètes qui répondent aux nécessités des gens.
So one of the challenges and necessities to really go directly to answer some of the necessities, the real needs on the ground of the different populations, so that we do not make proposals up in the air, no, and go straight to changing people's lives, no.
Nous sommes en relation, par exemple, avec un collectif qui s'appelle l'Atelier Paysan, et qui en France proposait au départ, proposait justement l'autonomie, se proposait l'autonomie des paysans, des agriculteurs. Mais ils se sont aperçus dans cette démarche que cette démarche qui s'appelle reprendre la terre aux machines, ils se sont aperçus qu'il y avait une machine plus importante encore, qui était celle de l'État, la méga machine. Donc, c'est une prise de conscience et à partir de là, on va essayer de développer des stratégies qui répondent à des besoins concrets.
So one example of this collective, or it's called on providing technical mechanical autonomy of peasants, so providing open source ways to build machines, etc. So really this focus on the technical dependency of peasants, no? But again, there was this necessity also to, beyond the machines, the real machines, we have the state machine. And so there is a necessity for collectives like that to have also articulate their work with a more political proposal of, in this
de la population, on se rend compte que, par exemple, le Covid, la paralysation du monde du Covid a fait qu'à beaucoup d'endroits, les gens se sont aperçus qu'il n'y avait plus d'autonomie alimentaire.
Right. So if we take another example with the COVID, no, with the lockdown and the break of many supply chains, many people realized that in their place they didn't have food security, autonomy, like food autonomy. No?
Alors, justement, une des préoccupations que l'on a au niveau du communalisme, c'est de dire comment va-t-on arriver à avoir cette autonomie alimentaire. Une des c'est vraiment quelque chose de concret qui réponde à des besoins alimentaires, non seulement de faire du bio pour ceux qui ont de l'argent, mais faire du bio aussi pour les gens qui sont dans les quartiers défavorisés et entreprendre une relation de confiance et une interaction avec les gens plus pauvres des pays, des endroits défavorisés, des quartiers défavorisés. Et c'est un travail qui est commencé en France par certains groupes. Et je pense que cela va parfaitement dans notre.
So when we talk about really concrete changes, we have the example of agriculture that's very relevant, precisely because, again, we have this necessity to go beyond just producing organic agriculture for the rich, no, but also having a social agriculture that can provide local food autonomy, food security to different people in different poor neighborhoods and areas of the territory, no. So really with that that strategy of food, the agriculture system, communalism can really experiment and respond to these needs and necessities of the people through autonomy and through changing also the ecology of the place. No?
Je parlais d'autonomie alimentaire, mais il y en a beaucoup d'autres au niveau de la santé aussi. Tout le domaine public qui est abandonné par l'État, enfin, eh bien, c'est à nous de les récupérer. Nécessité.
So agriculture is just one example, but the health system is another one, no? That is abandoned in many countries and many contexts by the state. So it's also a place where communalism could bring a significant contribution.
Le but immédiat, c'est justement d'institutionnaliser ce politique en parallèle et en tension avec l'État. Et commencer par les collectifs qui ont déjà une démarche qui va dans ce sens, c'est s'appuyer sur quelque chose de concret, sûr.
So this is really what we need to go towards, not to have this concrete step towards the dual power, not institutionalize this approach, dual power. Exactly the same approach to the political, radical politics. So that's a good place to start. Okay, so that this is it. Okay, so I don't know how much time we have for debates, but we will have debates. So please, if you have questions, Dimitri.
Floréal, tu as analysé. La question que je te pose, puis dans le municipalité. Et malgré ça, il y a un certain pouvoir autour de l'autonomie. Nous, on organise un mouvement autour de cette idée. Par exemple, l'agriculture urbaine est un mouvement très important. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire dans ce cas-là d'institutionnaliser l'espoir de bien nourrir la population de notre ville? Concrètement, qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Mouvement de deux pouvoirs. Le pouvoir de l'hôtel de ville et le pouvoir mouvement ou les mouvements dans les différents quartiers. Alors, c'est ça une question très clé.
So the question is basically what is meant by actually the sentence at the last section of institutionalizing, no, the communalist alternative with. You have the social movement. So the question is, what does that mean really to institutionalize in that context? Taking the example of urban agriculture, for example, which is a very strong movement in many cities.
Oui, je pense que tu as tout à fait raison, c'est-à-dire qu'il y a vraiment deux pouvoirs, il y a une dualité de pouvoir et il y a une tension qui va se créer entre ces deux. On parlait d'agriculture, mais ça peut être étendu, il faut que ça soit étendu à d'autres domaines. C'est pas seulement le fait de l'agriculture, c'est aussi prendre en compte toutes les initiatives locales et même toutes les luttes qui peuvent justement créer un pont entre les divers mouvements sociaux. Le politique doit faire ce pont, doit mettre en évidence que le problème euh, qui, qui est- qui est- qui atteint un des collectifs atteint forcément l'autre. Je veux dire, par exemple, un mouvement féministe, si il doit avoir, il a ses racines aussi dans l'exploitation. Il a aussi des concordances avec d'autres dominations et ce besoin aussi d'autosuffisance, c'est quelque chose aussi qui a à voir avec le féminisme. Je veux dire par là que lorsqu'on arrive justement à établir ce pouvoir local, ce pouvoir, ces institutions, c'est-à-dire un lieu où je pense qu'on crée justement ce double pouvoir et cette capacité à, à augmenter, à créer ce rapport de force. Parce que c'est là le rapport de force total pour faire basculer le capitalisme et s'installer nous-mêmes comme tel. Mais pour ça, il s'agit de créer un mouvement, non seulement un local, c'est impossible localement. Il faut que ce mouvement fasse tache d'huile partout, et au niveau mondial aussi, et incorporer dans ces mouvements comme l'indigénisme, par exemple, toutes ces tendances qui refusent l'intervention de l'État et du capital.
Okay, so at the local level, the answer will start with really having this capacity to gather in one place and to unite, so that unavoidably there will be a tension with the state and with the local powers, obviously. So it's one of the first places to start is the solidarity between different movements, so that if one suffers state repression, others are actually federation of movements. That's one of the main ways to start with this. And then at the more, see, this federation of different initiatives, this same idea can be replicated in a firm anti-capitalist and anti-statist vision. I don't know if that's it. I didn't say everything.
C'est pas tout à fait ça.
La question est si le mouvement est aussi fort qu'on peut, il ne va pas prendre le pouvoir de l'hôtel de ville et le décentraliser vers les quartiers, vers la population. C'est ça qu'on a fait à Montréal, par exemple. On a complètement décentralisé l'hôtel de ville. Je peux rentrer dans les détails très intéressants. Wow.
Ça, je suis preneur. Je suis preneur, mais pour l'instant, on peut dire pas.
Yeah. So now the point is that really the question is if you have such a strong movement already in your city, why don't you in that direction?
Et les tentatives de prendre des institutions de l'État pour les rendre on va dire, pour les rendre aux citoyens, c'était un échec partout.
Non.
Ça a été un échec partout et c'est normal. Si on rentre dans les institutions de l'État, on dépend de l'argent de l'État. Donc, il y a une direction qui est donnée à ça. On ne peut pas, comme ça, prendre l'argent de l'État et en faire ce qu'on veut.
So the reason is basically that there's the if you look at many different examples, so there's failures not to really have that decentralization, so to take the power and then really give it back to the people, not take it from state to the people. One of the reasons being that, well, ultimately you depend from the money of the state and you depend from the direction of the state. You're within it, so obviously it's very, very difficult.
Et je parlais tout à l'heure de plusieurs endroits. À Barcelone, c'est le municipalisme, on a vu l'échec que ça a été, quoi. Et donc, vraiment, je pense que c'est une voie à abandonner. Mais restons ouverts, on ne sait jamais.
So yeah, and again, going back to the examples we discussed a bit earlier, so Venezuela, China, there's already movements that are thinking like that, without really challenging the state church in itself. So with the other example of Barcelona, so in his opinion, it's a strategy that needs to be abandoned, but always being open, obviously, to discussions. Okay, so we're gonna close soon. Maybe we take one or two more questions if anyone has. Yeah, but I mean to give a chance maybe to one last brief question. If not, we will close. Okay.
Et ma question, c'est, dès qu'on a des mouvements qui essayent d'un peu s'auto-organiser, que ce soit dans des ZAD, que ce soit dans des occupations à l'université, que ce soit par exemple quand on parlait de l'écologie, il y a vraiment la violence étatique qui se déchaîne, qui ne tolère pas le moindre espace justement de vie parallèle comme ça. Ce qui fait qu'en fait, je pense que pour l'énorme majorité des gens qui pourraient être tentés et qui se disent c'est une bonne chose de s'auto-organiser comme ça, si on y va, c'est beaucoup trop risqué, donc on va quand même tenter l'État, même s'il y a moins de chances que ça marche. Du coup, face à ce qui est la répression policière et politique, comment est-ce qu'on peut s'auto-organiser à ce niveau-là, étant donné qu'on as soon as you start to create a space that has a parallel organization, institutions in general do not tolerate the slightest bit of that organization. You see it uh, in, in like ecological occupations against projects and university encampments. And so a lot of people who do think that ideally we would need to have this self-organization will still say, given the amount of violence we face politically by the police, we should still try the state institutional attempts, even if we know it's less likely to succeed. So how do we face this kind of violence, given that we do not have the same amount of strength as the state, as the institutions that go?
Justement, c'est pas dans l'urgence qu'on va faire les choses. Il faut y aller très doucement, malgré, et surtout à cause de l'urgence. Euh, le mouvement espagnol s'est développé, le mouvement anarchiste espagnol s'est développé malgré la répression terrible qu'il y a eu. Mais il y avait une grande solidarité chez les gens, chez le peuple, dans le peuple, il y avait une grande solidarité. Et même si les circonstances sont différentes, la seule chose, comme disait Öcalan, c'est pas les armes l'important. L'important, c'est l'organisation. Quand il y a eu, pour la première fois dans le monde, le peuple a réussi à vaincre l'armée. C'est en 1936 à Barcelone. En 24 heures, non seulement à Barcelone, mais dans l'autre ville d'Espagne, en 24 heures, l'armée a été vaincue par le peuple presque sans armes. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il y avait l'organisation. Donc l'organisation, j'insiste bien là-dessus, c'est le plus important. On va y aller doucement, mais on va y aller petit à petit, à regrouper les forces. Je dois en donner un sens à ce que l'on fait. Et une cohérence aussi dans le monde. C'est la cohérence souvent, c'est ce qui manque le plus.
So yeah, if we go back to the example of Barcelona, there is this well, the you see that it's the first time that a social movement has defeated an army, no, in a context where they have less arms. So it shows that there is the possibility, but only if the organization is strong enough. So really, the emphasis is on the organization, no, and also on what we talked about temporarily, and the time dimension to not rush and do things slowly, and really build this solidarity between the movements, and hence the coordination, the consistency, and the organization. Like this would be maybe the conclusion of the talk. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, Floréal. It was great. And well, I guess you will be around to talk. No? So thank you very much.
And they defeated the fascists in July of 1936. Don't forget that.
Defeated the
That's
first.
the part.
Yeah. Oui, c'était une bonne expérience. C'est marrant, la traduction. Ouais, ouais, très bien. Et toi, alors? Bien. Oui, non, non, je crois que non, ouais, l'essentiel pour après. Voilà, voilà. Après, ça va dans le texte. Non, ouais, bien sûr, bien sûr. Après, on parlera. Hein? Non, mais ça, c'est le débat éternel. Là. Dans le communalisme, le municipalisme, c'est le débat de base. Totalement de base. Enfin, c'était. C'est bien sûr. Donc,
Like to ask, you'd be willing to do an interview.
yes.
Let's see.
Yeah. Donc,
To this way, but maybe through email for some questions.
yes.
For the questions.
Yes. Il demande si tu serais partant de faire une interview, peut-être pas là pendant la conférence, etc., mais peut-être même par mail une fois où ils enverraient des questions et toi tu pourrais répondre
Because I think many of the things that you say fit very much in what we're doing after Lexi, because also very like Storiadi
Yeah.
and this insistence on institutionalization of grassroots power, a public space. This is
Yeah.
very much in line with what we
Ouais. Donc, parce qu'ils ont un groupe qui est Aftolexi, non, comment ça Aftolexi, et qui est très aligné sur l'institutionnalisation. Il travaille beaucoup sur Castoriadis. Oui. Donc, la situation, la récupération de l'espace public, la délibération, etc. Donc, c'est pour ça que ce serait vraiment aligné. Ce serait Castoriadis, c'est un grand pour moi aussi. Ouais. Castoriadis is also referenced. So,
very interesting.
great.
It's also very interesting that he's also in agricultural sector.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it's also very interesting that someone that is involved in agricultural work and obviously interested in books and Pastorales were more often associated with people.
Yes.
And I think this works very fascinating.
Yes. Quelque chose aussi qui est très intéressant, c'est que tu viens de cette perspective, donc, chez les pastoralistes, et aussi de la perspective agricole, non? Et alors que les deux processus urbains et non, et donc ça, c'est aussi important aussi, de complémenter les secteurs. Actually, in French, it's really the agriculture sector. This is where things are happening, soulèvement de la terre, the people are really making these alternatives. The ZAD was what is an agriculture, I mean, in the agriculture sector, things are happening.
So through you, we'll get sending some questions.
Yes.
Those are very interesting. We're looking forward to put in English.
Yes, of course. Ah oui, exactly. Yes. So, if you have the questions, he says that in any case, he plans to develop a lot of these things in the article they will be.
Thank you very much. This is for the future.
Yeah.
This session was not satisfactory. Because there was not enough time for discussion.
Yes.
Floréal presented a very complicated and very rich
Yes.
presentation.
Yes.
But you have to have a debate. You have to have a discussion.
No, I agree. The thing is, no.
Next time, when we're very personal thinking, really have to have a forum, be followed by a panel, but to really get into the subject.
No, with you, I agree with that. It's true that we started late, but we had 1 hour plan and we did 1 hour 15, so we already, But I agree with you. But every session would like to last,
Every session. It's this particular session.
I think you need to be democratic. The program is a structure. Everyone has their.
That's what the invited has done.
Yes.
Is to give the crux of the politics of social ecology.
Yeah.
What he did.
Yes.
That's the theme of the conference.
Yes. Yes, let's go.
Watch them. I have my questions. What is each question should I use?
This one. This one is the streaming live YouTube and.
I need on Canva.
What?
I need to go on Canva.
Okay, wait. So I'm just gonna connect Mikael, no? Hello, Mikael. How are you? You hear us? Okay. So we will start soon. We are a bit late, okay? But we will start soon. So good to have you here.
Why not start now?
Yes, we start now.
Okay, it's good.
Huh?
Are you using my Zoom and it's working?
No, actually, he provided his own, so it's okay. But actually, maybe later today we will. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so we will start in 5 minutes. Can you start talking, please? Just to make an audio test. Where is Elia?
I don't know.
1 second. We have problems with the sound.
Is this on? It's off.
You can turn it on like this. But
Okay.
it's for here. So normally. Can you try to speak, please? Just. Okay, so we need the sound to go on the.
Wait, can you check here?
No. This should come out from the projector. This is this entry.
Okay.
Where is Elias? Is here or is he like having a?
Wait, speak? Can you speak? No, wait. Take it out. Speak.
What?
We need to see if this is moving or not. If not, is their problem? If yes, it's our problem.
This is moving in what sense?
No, this is moving. He should speak.
Yes.
Speak. It's very low.
Oh, it's from here it's coming the noise.
Yes,
But
that's the
it's very
problem.
low.
You have to transmit it back to the
Exactly, that's the point. So,
from the settings you did it, I think.
yeah, but the audio, altavoz, yeah, no, there you go. Okay, can you try now? Perfect. Now this is it. Good. That's it. Thank you. Yes, it works now.
Hi, nice to meet you.
So we go with the order that's in
Federico.
the list.
So
Opielka,
actually,
Federico.
they will present the panel and you will start now according to the program. So anyway, I leave you guys do it. I need a break.
Can I see something on the program while we are gathering and so on?
Okay, yes, I'm going to call also the others.
Yes. Um, hello. Hello, everyone. I would like to mention something. I'm not moderating this session, but because I was one of the person in charge of the program, I would like to let you know um, that the third presentation, so Feminist Nonviolence as Liberation for All, by Emma, Miki, and Selene, is a bit a guest in our session. Um, because during the program we had some dropouts, we had to change and arrange a bit the different sessions. Unfortunately, this session had only two presentations at the end, and one was missing. We didn't know where to put them. So if you see that there are not many connections, yes, unfortunately, is has been done in that way. However, it runs quite smoothly because after their presentation, they're running an experience, an activity that they will tell you more later. So there are some kind of connection with the activity after during the lunch. So I just want to let you know about this. If you see not many connection with the previous two, there is a sense on it.
Okay. Now we begin the fourth panel session, Challenging Social Ecology and Next Steps. So, first presenter will be Michel Opielka. The title of his paper is Communalism, Garantism, Social Ecology, the Strategic Function of Social Sustainability in the 21st Century. Miguel, do you hear us? Yes.
instead of arguing in same form. That's starting point of my argument. Criticizing, and I will give you a small idea of how to go in a little bit bit that's for the show. To start with some charts with a very small and very small presentation. Put this together with equality. You can find out in more detail in the paper which I delivered to you. And but I want to start with another thing. It starts with a kind of meeting goes with the United Nations. That's a program which tries to combine ecological goals and the north represent more than 10 of the academic goals. The reason which movement program is a top hardware to common. And other types, you know, that we trying to integrate this development goals in sustainability strategies on the internet. That's the first topic. What is the question whether can be combined? And again, this was one of the big arguments, very quick arguments, very bullshit as we have very broad fields of thinking together. And I want to say the second doesn't work. And then these arguments that we have to a certain point of view, we have to conceptualize the new social policy of development in reference to the philosophy path. And our starting point was the skills to incorporate rationalism, to develop that here from Feminist, develop the latest and the famous really big review ideas, purpose, science, and ideational concepts. Because they practical type, ideational, so far as they are political concepts, normally. And you could think this is three types, liberal, democratic, or socialist, consumption. In my theory, when I developed it on the Swiss cases and other cases, I added a full concept of garantism, or the garantist type of development. We could find, for example, the nuclear form in Switzerland. And it's important for our discussion that there's four types of liberating which exist in base of cloud. It's a theoretic and a technical part. It's not a concrete, it's not a specific, it's a living concept. But we have mixed form. And the liberal concept is very skeptical against sustainability because it refers basically on the welfare state control system or the governance system of market. The social, theoretical socialist concept, which is focused on state intervention, state governance, is a very neurodynamic concept of society, because it only focuses on redistribution. Economic investments are relevant if they are on a more just and more equal basis, but they are not relevant in themselves. Constant option. one is that the kind of construction capability is like it's very difficult to distinguish because to because it has a in some they are very focused on community community ideas, but they are traditional family, status groups, nation. That's a conservative of communitarian metaphysics. And more rightly, the right wing ideas, as you all know, they are expanding in the past years. The first option, Garantistic, it is a very far concept of a very concept of sustainability. And I would say that in a certain way, the ideal type of the social sustainability development goals, sustainable development goals, has to do with this hard concept, this broad concept of sustainability. This is my basic idea, and I will finish. I wanted to make it a very, very short talkway. My argument is that ideological world, from this four points of view, the four regime fight, or this base items. The communalism should go hand in hand with a guarantee. Because that would recommend reduce politics to the communal, the political sphere. When I was in Berlin, visiting the city, and then it's very things that look like equality, and of course in a small thing, I look in this small kind of world, and Murray has lived in this world, and I would say that of course you can start politics, and you should start politics at the municipal level. Parties you should have had there, and my foundation is to combine communalism and guarantee the new concept of local facility. Thank you for your attention.
Okay. Anyone would like to make questions? Now is the time. Or comments on the presentation of Mr. Opielka?
Recording stopped.
But who, in your opinion, today, what kind of social movements or political forces today in Europe and elsewhere embody Garantism?
Yeah, I think is extremely honest. There are only one perspective, a dialect language, and it's the discussion of the field of units of content. Itself or field type that for example, there may be democratic as well contemporary groups who can join together in certain political topics. There's not only one. You have always have to look at a certain point of political. For example, Green Deal of the European Union.
Right.
There's a complicated coalition. Who is in favor of the Green Deal? There's some economic sector, for example, big companies who are in favor of other electric, some of the 4-year last universe, well, it's the one that the side is against it on the other side, Tesla is in favor of it. So we have had only one movement. There was always a
Yes.
solution. This,
What else?
and I was and I like this the Green Party leader, and I very of all of the available interesting examples stories. If you can't find the so what kind of coalition, what kind of movements you should be formed and you have the opponents for. Complicated. Complicated. And one of my most favorite political project, the basic income.
Exactly. Okay, fine.
Okay. If there are no more questions, we can proceed with the next panelist.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, now we proceed with Federico Venturini and his presentation being entitled Social Ecology and Waste, Rethinking Our Mode of Production and Consumption.
So hello everyone. I should access this computer that is not mine, sorry. Ah, so hello everyone. Some of you know me from yesterday when I spoke about building cultural resistance and social ecology. So I have to be very sincere. For my job, I'm a researcher working on waste and tourist destinations. So this is a bit weird, and but at least that is what gives me the money and the possibility to do more interesting and useful stuff for the society, I think. So like speaking about social ecology. So today, my aim and the goal of my presentation, are you ready? Okay, so is to make you interested about waste, if you're not already. And usually I work with students. I do workshops. I do workshops in schools, and when I work with them, I always put a small b when I'm asking interaction with them. So that means that I'm asking you what is waste. Yeah, it's an interactive session. There are just 3 questions. Then I will speak. Okay, but at least at the beginning. Yeah. So what is waste? We don't have a lot of time, so be quick.
By product production and stuff.
Okay. You studied that.
Things that humans don't want to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other idea? We're getting there. Yeah. So if you look at the Cambridge Dictionary, um, when we speak about waste, in many languages, or at least for English, but also for Italian, and I think also for others, waste has different meanings. So waste can be used for different things. So for example, in English, an unnecessary or wrong use of money, substances, time, energy, and abilities. So it doesn't mean anything about the things that you have in your pocket and you want to put in the bin. But then there is this second real meaning, unwanted matter of material of any type, especially what is left after useful substances or parts have been removed. Okay, so this is quite general, but we have also a more working definition that is coming from the EU Waste Framework Directive. That is, I think, that is more useful for what I'm doing now. So waste is any substance or object which the holder discards or intends or is required to discard. Okay, so we are talking about this, and for the sake of this, well, I will not speak because the next question that is related to this, what is happening to waste? So we define a bit what are we talking about. So I'm asking you, if I put something, and I'm not telling you what, if I'm telling you, if I'm putting something in the bin, what is happening after? Because tomorrow morning, if you are going, well, tomorrow is Sunday, but if you are coming back on after the celebration of the first, blah, 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 if you are coming back on Tuesday, that bin is empty but the waste didn't disappear. We all agree. But what is happening to the things that we are putting in the bin?
It goes to the landfill makers.
Wait.
Said the same thing, recycling or land.
Okay, recycling or landfill? Accumulation where?
In a cupboard.
Exported?
Incinerate.
Incinerated? Yes. Okay, someone wanted, at least my students want always to send something to Mars or to the sun. Yes, so recycled, incinerated, or one is missing, accumulated where?
Landfills.
Correct. So we have three different options. So recycled or disposed. For disposed, we have two different options, landfill, incinerators, or waste to energy plant. So what can we recycle? We have a list of some materials that generally worldwide can be recycled quite easily. We are talking about municipal waste. So the waste that we are producing or small companies are producing. Glass, plastic, paper, cans, metal, and one more. Organic, correct. So these are the things that we can recycle or compost, okay? We don't recycle compost and organic food because we don't get back the pizza that I'm throwing in the bin, like the paper that I'm getting back the paper. So we compost organic. So landfill, how long does it stay, the waste in the landfill? This is a tricky question that I do to my students. So I do to you. Don't say anything, please.
I don't got your question.
So how long does it stay?
Of years.
Okay. Any other idea? Do we all agree on thousands of years?
Depends on what it is.
Yeah, thousands of years. That means forever. So landfill is a hole in the earth, and we are just putting and we are throwing waste, and it stays there forever. Okay, from our perspective. So why waste is relevant? That was the question, and I'm giving the answer. So first of all, the municipal waste production worldwide in 2016 was 2.01 billion tons worldwide. That is gigantic, okay? It's not even something that I can imagine, but the more relevant information is that this is the projection, of course, that under a model of business as usual, in 2015, we'll have 3.4 billion tons. So there will be an incremental in the production. Why is this happening? Well, there are two factors. One, we are more people in the world, so more people, that means more waste. But more than that, Western countries, they already peaked their production and now is almost stabilized or small increase. The issue is that in the south, the countries in the south or in the rest of the world, let's say, they are developing and they really like our uh, mode of production and consumption that we imposed on them. So they are scaling up their production of waste. So we are exporting a model that is producing more waste, and the rest of the world is following us. Okay, so that is the huge increment is coming from there. So the waste, that means it is incrementing, that means more landfills, that means more incinerations and so on. And landfill and waste produce 80% of methane emissions worldwide, and methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas, like CO2, but on steroids. Okay, and of course there are impacts on the environment and on health, on human health, that are going beyond, of course, the methane. And I also want to remember that waste needs to be managed. So when we produce something on this scale, we need to stabilize, we need to do something on that. We cannot just live in the streets. Well, we could, but then we will have huge issues. But even if we manage it, we have impacts on the environment, and we have also cost. Regardless that we put in the landfill or incineration on one side, or we recycle, we always have impacts. Even recycling is polluting. Okay, because what does it mean? When we put something in the correct bin, the plastic one, I couldn't find a recycling bin in Athens, and this is killing me. But if we put in the correct bin, then there is a long process that is consuming a lot of energy, time, money, and also there are emissions in all the factory when we recycle. Okay, let's bear this in mind because sometimes we forget that. And as social ecology framed, waste is a direct consequence of grow or die paradigm that we saw before. Okay, so there are some hints here and there on social ecology in the books, in various books about waste as a byproduct of our society. So this is the trend of waste production between 2004 and 2022 in AU, and you can see that there are some small increment at the European level in the brown column, if you see down there. I would like to say something more, but we don't have a lot of time. So one of the solutions that has been proposed is let's be smart and let's throw technology in waste or waste technology somehow. So the problem is we put sensor everywhere and we put bins that are very smart and they say, okay, you have to collect the bin and so on. But the point is that we still have ways to be managed. We can be very smart. We can pay a lot of technology and some very rich people will be very happy, but we still have a lot of environmental and money cost that cannot be resolved if we just use this kind of smart technology. And also, to be smart is always going the direction in improving recycling, and a lot of the campaigns in the schools this is something that we need to do, okay? But recycling is putting the blame on the citizens that are not recycling enough. And even when recycling is done in a good way, you take the responsibility out of the citizens because they are saying, oh, I did my part, I'm recycling, I'm green, and that's it. The problem, recycling is not the way out from the mess that we are creating still. And this is a graph that highlights the waste treatment in the EU. So as you can see, there is a small increment in the production. I didn't put a B, but I'm asking you that there is something that is telling us that this mess cannot be solved just recycling. Can you say some movements? So the red is recycling, the green is composting, then there is the brown incineration, landfill is the dark blue, and something else. So we can increase the recycling, but there will be always a fraction that cannot be recycled under our mode of production. Okay, and even if we increase the recycling, we still have to manage that with environmental costs. So the best waste is no waste. Okay, and I also want to link that there are no waste on landfills in nature. So we should go back and we should study, of course, and we should mimic whatever you want to use as a verb. But we need to have closed loops. Circular economy has been already taken by the system, so I'm sorry. I'm like to use circular systems. That is what we are aiming for. So at the European level, there is this think tank that is Zero Waste Europe that is going in this direction. That made this pyramid that somehow is also at the base of the Waste Framework Directive at the European level that are working toward waste prevention. Okay, so at the bottom you can see what is not acceptable, like landfillings or incineration or waste to burn to waste for production of energy. And then if you're going up in the pyramid, there are better solutions. And then, as you can see, recycling is in the middle, okay? Like composting, anaerobic digestion for organic stuff is just in the middle. That means that there are many other options that we have in order not to recycle, but to have less waste. For example, we can repair, like preparation for reuse. We can reduce the need of something or our use of something, and we need to increase reuse of our stuff. And also the best option is to refuse some kind of behaviors. We should rethink our behaviors. We should redesign the object that we are using. As you can see in this pyramid, that is very cool, that is very nice, that is very flashy. It doesn't say a lot or nothing at all on our current system. So on zero waste, that is nice, that is very huge. Well, it's getting huge, some traction in the last 20 years as a campaign worldwide. They're not saying much around power dynamics and all the actors involved. So I want also to add that the city is working as a metabolism, and that is a linear system where everything is entering as a food, as a goods, inputs, energy, and then we have a lot of waste. The idea is to have a circular system where more energy and the consumption and the material is kept inside the system. So the outputs, we still have outputs. They cannot be eliminated at all, but they're reduced as much as possible. So this is the aim. I think this is what we need to do in our utopia. We should also think that when we talk about waste, there are many different aspects that are going to play. That is something that is related to lifestyle, for sure. There is something around technology, okay, that we have to work in. Then also on production and policy, okay. And when we speak about waste, there is interconnection of all of them. I try to sum up. Oh, this is something that is not there. So, just to conclude, 2 slides. So the idea is to rethink our mode of production and consumption, not just thinking, okay, so I should tell to my citizens that they have to consume less. It's not that. In capitalism, doesn't work that way. So we need to rethink how we produce, what we produce, and how we consume. And if we think that, that means build new societies beyond capitalism. That means building culture of resistance, as I mentioned yesterday. So this is why I think that talking about waste is quite a revolutionary concept that usually social movements are not very aware. We don't care enough what is happening of the things that we put in the bin, and on Tuesday morning it's not there anymore. But there is a lot of money involved and a lot of impacts as well. And it's speaking a lot on how we live in our society. So again, this is just a summary of what I just said today. On top, we need to highlight, we need to be aware of power dynamics of and between multiple actors on waste management, from the city council, the state, the waste management collectors, the companies, the citizens, various groups within the citizens themselves. Smart technology solutions are not sufficient. Can be nice, can help, but they're not the final solution. And the impacts of waste management, they are huge. With all of this, central cultural and educational process are very, very important in order to explore what does it mean manage waste and to rethink also the mode of production. And if we start to think and if we start to look at waste, then we can understand that it's not just a problem of the things that we put in the bin, but it's something related to the wider picture of opposition, alternatives, destruction, whatever you want on capitalism. So again, building cultural resistance, so virtual society for sustainable and democratic futures that are not just for individual behaviors, but also a collective commitments for the common goods. And again, social ecology can contribute with ethics, analysis of contemporary crisis, praxis, direct action, direct democracy, and utopia visions within this project. So let's make waste revolutionary again. Thank you.
Let's, whoever has a question, now is the time.
Yes. So, incineration and secret. No, I spoke about so incineration or waste to energy. Here, no, is incineration landfills or waste to energy. These are the three options that should be at the bottom. Incineration is incinerator. Is that plant where the companies are putting all the waste and is burned at a high temperature in order to have less impacts. There are filters and so on, but still. And waste to energy is incinerator with some turbines in order to produce energy or warm water. Yeah.
Character means includes also when they burn or when they put together all waste. They, for example, reuse for covering the roads, produce building blocks. It can be radioactive or whatever. Yeah, I mean, the waste includes many toxic material as well. So we should be careful for that.
Yeah, I spoke only about municipal waste. Then there is radioactive. All the things are coming from the chemical plants, so it's huge. It's huge.
I mean, there is, of course, a physical limit to recycling. I mean, Georges Reagan and the second law of thermodynamics apply to, capitalist production and consumption in the sense that no matter how we recycle, no matter how ethical the individual consumer is, the scale of our consumption is so huge that it's going to have an impact. So reduce material consumption is like what? I mean, you're moral imperative than social imperative, right?
It's something that we need to do, but it's not only that.
It's pretty rare.
Nowadays, for sure.
Yeah. In my case, with the plastic straw,
It's also
plastic straw.
also for us. Yeah.
Okay, so we have 3 questions in line. Futuris, Zdravko, Elias.
was a very enlightening presentation in the sense that we understand that every action we make is inserted into a link of production, consumption, and waste. So we are part of it, and as social movement, we try to change this pattern.
Yeah.
But these patterns go way beyond our sphere of influence. So we have, okay, the modern way of production and distribution creates, by definition, more waste. Also, we have the practice plan obsolescence, in the sense that waste is also a byproduct of this intensification of exploitation of both humans and nature that is needed to maintain the levels of growth that will keep capitalism alive. Yes. So we agree with that. Okay, this is pretty self-evident. But what is our sphere of intervention? It was a very enlightening presentation, but I expected one more slide in the sense that we as social movements have this and this and this means of putting limits in place and creating conflicts in these parts of this chain. So we as municipalists, for example, how can we influence municipal policy other than, for example, locate put up posters and do marches and try a lot and stuff like that?
That is a good question, and I can come up with an idea in the next conference 2 years. I'm very sincere. I would like to have an answer, but I didn't work into that. I think that is one of the direction that I want to do, and I'm putting out the question also to you all. The idea was to more to generate discussion starting from this, that usually is a point of view that is not very used within such a movement, something that is explored. But yeah, and if I can problematize even more, question of time, because when we start to think how to manage waste, that is a huge question, and it will take a lot of time for the society to change the behaviors, but at the same time also to change all the mode of production. So it's nothing new, but we also need to take in consideration that. And I was thinking, okay, so such a movement, what can I do? It's very hard. For sure, there are many campaigns against, for example, landfills or incineration plants that they are must. If I can say something, the the incineration that is nice. So if I burn some waste, it's not there anymore. The problem is the emissions and the loss of material and the energy that still is needed to do that. But the loss of material is huge. We are consuming what we already produce and we lost all the effects. For example, if we are taking cans or glass and that is burned, we have impacts on the production and also impacts on nature when we burn that. The problem is that when these kind of plants are implemented, are constructed, the companies they want to have a 30 years agreement with the municipalities or something like that because there are huge costs involved. What is happening? Then the municipality needs to provide a certain amount of waste in order to the plant to function. So the municipality is not incentivized, A, to recycle, and B, to produce less waste, because waste is needed to the plant. So we are feeding the machine with our waste. So please, this is just an answer, but incineration is something that we need to avoid as much as possible. And even on a European scale, they are recognizing that, and this is why incineration and even production of waste through waste, production of energy through waste, is not considered green. At least something, okay? Because they understood that to have this kind of contracts is totally against even the European policy and the targets that they put for recycling and to reduce waste.
So time is pressuring us. I will have 3 more questions.
Mention the carbon emission.
But be brief, please. So Zdravko, be very brief. Yeah.
can use your question two tracks that connected with the individual action, which are quite important. The first one is that people are to blame for the creation of trash. The second is that you have done your part. Your recycling can be done your part, but the third one is connected with ourselves. Is that we know that individual decisions will not solve the problem, so we just continue reproducing capitalist practices with and consumerist practices, and not questioning them and not changing them. So it is also a trap of looking for from individual action. And we can do that also. We can also just say that wasting is also connected with wasting of energy and resources, which is on the core of the creation of problem with our relation to nature. And not only waste can be a product, but even starting from the point and even on the topic of waste is often it is forgotten one of the most important basic environmental principle of reducing, reusing, and recycling. That the reducing is much more the most important part in order not to waste materials and energy.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I guess Hannah, you quite looking for some.
Why don't you just say no? Just
I'm happy to. I'm happy to discuss later.
Yeah, I think yes, we can do it during the break. No, please.
Yeah, that's
Really, we'll go off the.
Sorry, but if you don't let me talk, we will start doing this instead of I talking and we don't advance. So please give me 1 second.
Okay, but
and I can start.
Because then they need also to have the time for discussion and.
you can take the question.
Wait for all the interventions.
Take.
Let's make an assumption. Like we don't change capitalism, we don't destroy capitalism, we don't change society, and this waste accumulates and all these waste. So waste mountains are all over the place. Atmosphere is different. Some animals like cockroaches, rats develop, evolve, etc. And are there any people or research about how bad it is for humans at least or for nature to have some kind of different ecology or different environment in which waste is a relevant part of the reality and the surroundings? And if are there any studies or people thinking about this, or only about no, let's think that we are achieve this and how can we do this? But if we don't, and if waste is bigger, how can we? Is there any studies or people that are thinking about how to deal with that?
So the point is that nature we are producing waste. Something that is not, as I mentioned in the presentation, is not done in nature. Nature is working through closed loops. So if you are putting out all the waste and let the nature to deal with that, that is not a solution that is feasible because we are
when this is the situation in the future, what good can this we do? Living in between the waste.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer. I mean, let's say it's just a reflection and you
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. So the last presentation is a collective endeavor, and I invite here Emma Wilson, Kashtan, and
Do you need it further?
as I say, it's a collective endeavor. The title is Feminist, Nonviolence as Liberation for All, the Power of the Soft Qualities to Transform the Here.
raise your reputation.
This has nothing to do with the title of the film.
Wait, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, yes, you can. I'm sorry. Yes. Can you come here? This one?
Yeah.
But I am saying something. I will come.
Is is Theo, the computer is blocked? The computer is blocked? Ah, no.
No. Yeah, that's it.
Is that the
Well, the Zoom. Okay, he left. So
the microphone is off.
It's off.
yeah, you can
I
turn
don't
it
know.
off if you want. No
Do we
problem.
want it on for?
Yeah, I think it's better maybe.
Okay.
I was
Theo?
already thinking about
Theo.
Yeah, that's the okay. That's a problem actually. Yeah, fair enough. Is that this computer does not have a PowerPoint, so
we can go.
Can we just
you have it in Google.
we
Okay, you can
emailed
send
it
it.
to you already.
Okay,
I think.
okay. Sorry. Let's do this computer. You send it to info TRISE.
Think Murphy.
My
Anything that could go wrong
Lino Tio,
will,
Theo.
and at the worst possible time.
Murphy.
Where is
Murphy's laws.
Which Zoom
There's a
link?
dispute about whether
Maybe
the
you sent
guy
it
actually
before.
existed or
This
not.
is okay. There are two.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the second one, or you have two now?
If I
No,
turn this
just one.
off,
Okay.
I could, so it doesn't pick you up, or I could go this way. I can start talking without the slides. Is that all right? So, pretend the slide says our evolutionary makeup is as a mothering species. That's what I want to share with you about. When a sea turtle hatches, it immediately needs to rush to the sea, and many things are trying to eat it. You're familiar with this story? You can picture it. And when a horse is born, it's very quickly able to walk and run, right? A human baby is not very quickly able to walk and run or keep other things from eating it or even to hold up its own head. Yes? We are born with a trust that someone will be there to take care of us because we are not able to take care of ourselves in our immediate infancy as other animals are. One of the reasons why this happens is because of our big brain. If we were born with our brains fully developed, we wouldn't actually fit through the birth canal. And so we spend time after birth with our brains developing. So how and why did these big brains develop? As far as I understand that through our ancestors evolving in collaborative groups, we were able to develop bigger brain and kind of simultaneously we have bigger brains so that we can function in these collaborative groups. To say it a little differently, our ancestors' manner of living, this comes from Maturana's The Origin of Humanism and the Biology of Love. Our ancestors' daily life was filled with what we'll talk about later, the soft qualities. It was filled with attending to needs, caring for each other, caring for infants into adulthood. And through that daily life, through their manner of living, it enabled our biology actually evolved simultaneously with that to create the circumstances where we were able to have these big brains, but also what it means to be human. So our daily life manner of living actually affects our evolutionary biology through epigenetics. And we see this now even when we see the impacts of screen use on spines, for example. Do you know what I mean? Have you heard about the screen use infecting our posture? Okay. So our ancestors' daily life, their manner of living was full of the soft qualities, which we'll be talking about. We are a mothering species in that we need to be mothered in order to survive into adulthood. And also we have a biological need to offer the gift of caring and nurturing for our youth. So because it's actually in our biology, through our evolution, through epigenetics, when we're born trusting that someone will care for us, otherwise we literally wouldn't survive infancy. We're also expecting to be born into a community that is embodying these soft qualities. And everyone here today, you're alive now because someone minimally gave you the bare minimum of caring for your needs until you were more able to feed yourself, care for yourself. I'm very distracted. So I'm almost ready to wrap up, but everyone here is alive because someone took care of you. And I want us to actually pause and feel that and experience that. There was a time where you were not able to hold up, your own head, even. You're not able to eat or walk or care for yourself. And no, it's okay. And part of our experience, even now, is that I want to just get across that because of the bodies that we live in, we need that. And we all experience that, or we wouldn't have survived infancy. And at some point, though, we encounter patriarchy, where our needs are less important. For example, I actually remember the moment that I realized that money was a thing. We were in a grocery store and I wanted something and my mom was explaining to me that she couldn't buy it for me. I actually remember that moment. And each of us at different ages and in different ways experienced that shock where our bodies expect a certain kind of warmth and we receive and cared for. And we at some level have received it and experienced it. And then we have that shock of encountering patriarchy. So this is the soup in which that we're all existing in, the background that we're wanting to share a presentation for. So we are a mothering species. And what does it take to move towards a post-patriarchal social order? We see that we need to think about what it means to be human, that we actually believe that the ways that we're all born in this trust in life, this trust that someone will receive us, that actually is possible to restore even after this shock of encountering patriarchy. And that we can find the courage to see that what is mainstream accepted as normal is actually at odds with our evolutionary biological makeup. Even though when I share this with you, it may sound like naive and romantic. So, yeah, and then Miki, you're going to share about this quote.
Yeah, I think this quote is powerful because the first thing that we need in order to be able to create something different from what we have is to actually be able to imagine that not only is it possible in some theory, it's possible because it's already existed and is actually who we are. and that all the statements about, oh, that's naive and romantic, those societies were blah, 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 those are the things to question, because those are loops of reinforcing existing narratives, and we need to release our imagination first. And this, I just will connect it also for a moment with Martin Luther King. His most famous speech is, I have a dream, not I have a nightmare. Here are all my complaints. Here's all my critique. Here's all that I think somebody else should have done, blah, blah, blah. No, I have a dream. And the dream is of something that it was at that time thought to be entirely impossible. I suggest for people to read it. That's the piece.
So you're next.
Oh, no,
I'm
next. Yeah. Oh. Get a picture next. So this slide, aligning means with ends. So this refers back to what we were talking about before, with aligning with this biological, what did you call it? Readiness, yeah, evolutionary makeup, kind of readiness to live in a certain way of being. So we're biologically ready for that when we come in. So yeah, why do we need to? Oh, align means with ends. Because yeah, patriarchy's encroachment on the biology of love continues, and we were hearing about this in Federico's presentation, many of the other presentations, just about, like, for example, you know, we live within 1.6 Earth's extraction, for instance. We know that we're in sight of, like, well, from what we understand from the information that we have, we're in sight of potential extinction. Fewer people are controlling so much more of the Earth's resources, and at the same time, like, we have a sense of having more, and yet need satisfaction is so much lower. There's more addiction, depression, illness, violence, etc., etc. The list continues. So it's continuing. It's increasing its kind of crunch on life, patriarchy's crunch on life. And yeah, within that, it's important to align means with ends, to align our actions with that biological evolutionary makeup, because more resistance following the same ways of resisting are unlikely to actually lead to different outcomes. So what this means would be like changing how we respond to patriarchy by leaning on this principle of aligning means with ends through actually embodying and anchoring this vision in concrete action. And someone before over there was talking about, like, what is actually within our sphere of influence? What can we actually do? So then, yeah, what is the path? And within that, we're seeing that nonviolence is a discipline of love. So actually embodying this evolutionary makeup, it's hard because, like, you know, patriarchy and feminism is so encroached in on us and so internalized within us. It's really hard to embody that evolutionary makeup within what we live in. And yeah, within that, we know that, like, there is no individual solutions. Someone else just named that earlier as well, to systemic problems. We all have heard, you know, we know the need for alternative community contexts in order to do collective liberation. It also requires that internal liberation to free ourselves internally from how we've taken in the beliefs that we've been, the ways of believing about life that we've been given, so that we can actually find the courage to stand up for life and to speak the truth of what we see, also with love, not with this againstness either or, because that actually repeats the pattern of war, like in these, you know, tiny ways even within us. To stand up for oppressive systems and, like, advocate for the dignity of all people through an integration of that power and love. It is actually possible to integrate and hold all the needs once we've freed ourselves more from the constraints of these ways of thinking. Like Selene was saying, our big brains are actually designed for creative problem solving and integration. We have what we need. It's just about liberating the capacity.
It's making a vibration.
Um, this is Victor, one of my dearest friends, and he has a very beautiful quote. Um, he has a quote that I really love, which captures something that people usually divide. People usually either focus on oneness, Om Shanti, we're all one, and ignore the fact that we have such different circumstances, we are so divided and all of that. Or they focus on differences and all of that and ignore the fact that we're all one. And this quote captures the reality that when the boat sinks, if we're actually going for extinction, that's going to be all of us. And some are already going through extinction. First of all, the wider web of life, we are having waves of extinction that are hard to imagine, even, and yet they're happening every day. And, collapse is already happening and has been happening for several hundred years for some people on the planet. So the situation is a both and that means that if we want to actually create something else, we need to focus on everyone while understanding the differences so that we can do the both and all the time. So the way that Victor frames liberation for all is as unconditional, unilateral. Actually, is it that order or is it the other order? Oh, it's not here. I can't remember. Okay, unconditional, unilateral, universal solidarity. And unconditional means that I will offer you my solidarity regardless of who you are, regardless of any conditions. I'm not going to be placing conditions on giving you solidarity. I'm going to give it one way, even if you don't give it to me. And I'm going to give it to everyone, including the people who are creating the most harm. Because the basic premise is that there is real reasons behind everything that people do, including killing babies, including polluting and putting garbage everywhere, or any of those things. There's always a real reason behind what somebody does. It doesn't mean that the thing they're doing actually makes sense or that I'm not going to try to stop them from doing it, but I'm still going to care for the real human reasons that lead them to do what they're doing. That's a really deep principle that is embedded within what we call feminist nonviolence, that goes several steps beyond regular nonviolence in prioritizing love. So there's an assumption here, and it's borne out. So I'll just tell one little story of solidarity with an oppressor, which is, you can look it up, but there are dozens of them, hundreds of them, and many more. A rabbi and his wife moved to a southern city in the US and started getting phone calls from a Ku Klux Klan person threatening them. And they traced where the number is and left a message of love on that phone line. And they did it every week for months. At some point, that person called and said, I'm in trouble, will you help me? They got together. That guy was a Ku Klux Klan leader. He was diabetic. He was already in a wheelchair. His community has left him behind. They talked, they connected. He moved in with them into their basement and spent the last year of his life making amends for all he had done in his life. And that's just one story. I have a complete confidence, and there is also quite a bit of research about this, that anyone who inflicts suffering, suffering was inflicted on them before. We know we are not like just suddenly out of the thin blue air decide, now I'm going to do violence. If my needs are actually met, I will never resort to violence. That's a deep assumption. And I will just read one quote from another friend, Aurora Levens Morales. If we agree to accept limits on who is included in humanity, then we will become more and more like those we oppose.
Okay, so the kind of qualities that we're embodying within this orientation is what we call soft qualities. And you have this phrase actually, which isn't here, but it's what about surrounding the patriarchal figure? Can you say that?
Yeah, I basically don't believe that anything else can interfere with patriarchy. The image that I have is just like the evil witch from the West. I imagine everybody knows about it, melted in response to water. So the idea of surrounding the patriarchal field with love, enough love that is bigger than the patriarchal field, it will melt because fighting it is using its own means against itself, and it will always win.
Yeah. So radical commitment within feminist nonviolence is to respond to patriarchal behavior with non-patriarchal ways, which surrounding with love is that. So this leans on trust in the power of a potent field of love to both, for example, recover from trauma activation when it happens, rather than passing it on through whatever reactivity that may come out as. And also responding from togetherness, which the story that you gave is an example of, rather than from kind of the grooved us-them pathways within us. So how can we actually hold the whole more within what we're, how we're, orienting to what happens to us. And so the path of soft qualities is about releasing complicity with the qualities primary to patriarchy. So it's like embracing instead soft qualities, which we're going to talk about a bit next, and grow our strength to stand up to patriarchy with courage, truth, and love, which actually requires standing in those soft qualities. There's a lot of strength when we're standing in those places, like vulnerability, generosity, especially in relation to what someone else said before about how we can't actually stand up to state power with violence. There's no way. Like the immensity of violence there is too huge. And someone else was also saying that we need to respond from a different angle that is going to take state more by surprise. And responding from the strength of this place is much more likely to do that than anything that comes with this kind of clashing attitude.
I just would like to interject something. This is one of the ways that I understand why nonviolent movements have been so much more successful in the last 100+ years than violent movements, twice as successful. This is one of the reasons why I think this is happening. It's because there's less separation, less us them, less means that the state can then use against people. Like, for example, in Syria, things got really bad after people stopped being nonviolent. Until then, the state was so surprised they didn't quite fully know what to do with it.
So another way to say what we're saying is that we see these soft qualities as an antidote to patriarchy. And I'm just going to say a few things about these, and I invite you to read our paper where we say more. So tenderness as a direct and powerful tool to surround patriarchy with love. So when we say surround patriarchy with love, how do we do that? We invite tenderness for myself, tenderness for the person in front of me, tenderness for even someone who's doing something I wish they weren't doing. Vulnerability can bridge gaps and can restore trust. It contains in it the seed for moving towards vision. and can rekindle the power of our needs, of human needs, to touch hearts and invite generosity. Generosity allows us to offer ourselves fully. I think one thing that I'm wanting to add here is when we look at children, before they've had that shock of being inundated with patriarchy, when we look at children, they embody these qualities. So when I think of generosity, I think of the studies that have done when they put children in a room and give them one cookie, they pretty much tear it in half and share without anyone telling them to. It's just part of who we are. And so we also talk about capacity assessments, actually, based on where we are, and not where we think we're supposed to be or where we're experiencing pressure. We actually check what can we actually do in this moment. Mourning acknowledges the gap between where we wish we were, what our vision is, and what currently is. And mourning actually helps us to keep ourselves from falling into violence towards ourselves or towards others. And if we can access mourning, it can be a way where we can access some of these other soft qualities. Like if I can't experience in myself tenderness, and I'm able to mourn, there's the vulnerability, there's the tenderness then. And then the last thing that we wanted to mention as a soft quality is staying open to what was lost through patriarchy. It could be the commons, it could be the community that our bodies expect to be born into, but we don't actually have. So staying open to that.
And I have a case study to
Last slide.
I have a case study to present, and this methodology called convergent facilitation is designed for creating collaborative solutions, collaborative problem-solving decision-making that is integrative and ends up with solutions that work for everyone. And in the paper, there are several examples. I will just mention one, which is in the state of California. There was a panel that was put together to come up with pest management policy for the next 30 years. And the panel included people all the way from tribal leaders, meaning indigenous tribal leaders, to agribusiness people. And they all signed a 90-page document. So this was a consensus plan for the next 30 years. Is it the ideal plan? No, but it's really the best that could be created through people coming together and working out their differences. So I want to just end this by showing, and this QR is, there's a book that I wrote about this, so if people are interested, it's called The Highest Common Denominator, not the lowest common denominator, the highest, and this will give you a link to the book. So I want to demonstrate how this methodology, which is very practical, it's not airy-fairy. It's solving really intense problems like that one, or another one involved child labor research. Another one involved legislation in Minnesota about child custody. So it can apply to very intense, dramatic conflict. And I want to show how some of the different qualities are embedded in it. And it's, for me, since I'm the one who created this methodology, I am believing that this is what makes it work, is these principles and these capacities within the facilitators, which is a big part of it, is faith that a solution that works for everyone is possible. We don't have to dominate or have a compromise. Compromises don't work. Compromises is lose-lose, and we're talking about win-win. So The first thing is we listen with generosity and humility. And when we do that, we actually hear what's important to people underneath their opposing positions. And that in itself creates trust. So once we know all that is important to everyone, that is held by the entire group. Everybody comes to see that in order to solve the problem, all these things have to be attended to, even if they have no idea how. It has to be attended to. And they all agree to it, and that creates trust and goodwill. Then there's the question of tenderness to capacity limits. There's no push on everyone to agree to anything. The process is one of mutual influencing and integrating concerns that arise. It's like, oh, okay, that doesn't work for you. What if we do this? What if we do that? There's a constant integration, invitation of dissent, not pushing people to agree, which leads to compromise. And there's a real experience that happens when we actually connect with what other people want and we shift to it is very different from compromising, because shift is organic and open-hearted and compromise is contracted. Then we let go of what's fair. Fairness divides people. I know people talk about fairness all the time, but fairness is divisive. What we want to look at is what is actually possible. Even if something is fair, whatever fair means, which over time I completely lost track of what it could mean, but even if we could all agree on what's fair, if it's not possible, it won't happen. And what does it mean for something to be possible? Is that it's within capacity for the people involved to actually make it happen. And if we stay focused on that, what is actually within capacity, what is actually within willingness, and keep working through that, we find willingness increasing. So people become softer themselves. Instead of protecting their preference, they open to the possibility of what they're willing. Here's like an example. Think pizza. I know some of us don't eat pizza, but imagine pizza and think about your preferred pizza. It will have these 3 exact ingredients. But if you had to share pizza with others, you would probably be willing to let go of those ingredients. And there are many other ingredients that you would be willing to eat. And there would be some that you are not willing to eat. You would suffer if you eat them, or they would compromise your health or something. And this is about finding a pizza that everybody is willing to eat, not a pizza that makes everyone happy. We cannot make everyone happy, but we can have everyone be in willingness. And this includes a lot of humility and not knowing, being willing to live in not knowing for a long time, because the longer you take before you try to make a decision, the more goodwill and capacity you have to be with the unknown. And then the solution eventually finds you. And it requires getting out of either or frames. And when you frame a question as either or, you're less likely to find a solution that works for everyone. Okay, I think that's it. And just to say that whatever questions there are about this, the experiential activity that we're going to do is about the presentation that we did yesterday. We wanted to do it yesterday and it didn't work out. So it is going to be a bit of an awkward transition, but first.
There's a lot of overlap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the experiential thing, we're going to be talking with Federico, so that yes, he agreed to it, and whatever faces he's making, he's agreed. Yeah, not the second. To help him identify what are actually the needs of the organizers in terms of money, and then divide people into small groups to support each other in discerning whether or not to give money and how much to give in relation to the needs. Because there's a donation box, but it doesn't say anything about the needs. Needs are not known. People are less likely to be moved to give.
Mostly we just want to model what we were talking about.
Yes.
And this is happening now. After this. Yeah, after questions.
Yeah. Okay, are there any questions? Yeah, let's just do these two questions. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you all. That was really engaging, and I appreciate it. I have two questions. I'm curious how you all define nonviolence. So I know in feminist studies there's some debate, or even just in our general society, if like destruction of property is considered violence, or like emotional violence, or intellectual violence, or just like physical bodily harm is in your terms of nonviolence. And I'm also curious about how we can, like, in these ideas, we can show solidarity with oppressed peoples and groups that are using more militant resistance that doesn't fit into this nonviolent framework.
Okay. I think that will be fast. So we lost the microphone.
Press the button.
We regained the microphone. Where's the button to end capitalism? Okay. So, this is a very long thing, but just a very brief thing is it is less about what you do and more about internal alignment. So Gandhi was talking about nonviolence in thought, word, and deed. And it's easier for people to be nonviolent in their actions than it is to be nonviolent in their words, and easier to be nonviolent in their words than to be nonviolent in their thinking. But ultimately, it's at the level of thinking. It's at the level of, even if I end up deciding that there is the only way to move is through force, I still do it with love for the people against whom I use force and with mourning that I don't have in my imagination any other pathway. That's the short answer. I have an article on Medium that is called Is Nonviolent Use of Force an Oxymoron? Where I wrestle with all those questions a lot. And in terms of solidarity, I think I can be in solidarity with people, with their needs, with their desperation, and accept that I, from the outside, am no judge on what they're going to do. But that's different from actively condoning it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you.
Also to say that we are staying here also tomorrow. Anyone who is staying here tomorrow, we are happy to meet with people over lunch and over dinner for whatever additional conversations people want to have with us. Just let us know.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, actually, it goes a bit in that direction, no? Because I kind of have thinking that it's great, you know, that in this conference we're having really the spectrum, no? Because, I mean, obviously no one is defending violence as such, but for example, yesterday we saw a documentary, you know, where, well, that was really another perspective. And one way to frame that discourse, you know, always is the paradox of tolerance. Now, I'm always thinking about this because it's true that you have this paradox that tolerance, the tolerant society, if it tolerates the non-tolerance, so if we think of fascism, whatever tendency, well, tolerance hacks itself, no? So we have this issue of like, that brings the necessity, let's say, of self-defense and of, well, then it depends on definition, no? Self-defense, violence, that's matter of definition, but I really wonder, yeah, in the context of Roja, for example, we're talking about, like, do you think this approach can be compatible in a civil society while you have people that are killing others and the front line?
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I have not been there. I'm not making any judgment. I can only speak about my wish. My wish is that if they do whatever they do and that they don't rejoice in it. It's the place of where in the movie where they were saying, you know, we were not having any difficulty seeing the bodies of the enemy. The word the enemy is an issue for me. It's like I would want to say the people who are attacking us than the enemy, the people who are threatening all that we are doing. So we remember why we're doing it, and it doesn't get attached to the people against whom we're doing it. And I want to say again, I bring a lot of humility. I don't know. And the article that I wrote about war is out there. There are some copies. I don't know if people already took, but I get into some of these things, not specifically in Rojava, because I'm trying to apply it to what is happening in Gaza now, in Palestine and Israel and all of that. So it's a very big problem, and I am from Israel, and I am not contacting some people that I know, and they're not contacting me, and I know it's because we both know that we have different opinions about what is happening and can't bear to confront it. I'm quite confident of this. It's really scary what is happening there. The level of trauma resulted in actual, I think, collapse of Israeli society. And it's from within the collapse that now the majority of people are going along with what Netanyahu is doing.
Okay, so like Federico now experience?
Yeah.
Because it's now 1:20 in the food will come. She last question,
Okay, so whoever wants to be here for the experiential, stay. And if you don't want to be here for the experiential part, please leave. Just don't have conversations here.
If you want to stay for you can top your hand if you're planning to stay and see whether to get chairs or not. Yeah, where you stay.
It's not clear. We just ask the people upstairs, please, if you want to have another conversation, please have it in another room. Please exit rather than have conversations here. Just please walk out of the room.
there will be an experience now with our three friends here. Can you please say it so that it's clear and that not everyone leave thinking that there is nothing now?
There is an experiential activity that we're doing, and we're asking those who don't want to participate in that to leave rather than to have other conversations here. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
So,